I once heard about this church in this small community that experienced a real tragedy. It was only a small town, I think in California somewhere, and there was a landslide in the town and it killed a bunch of people. And there was this church, and the pastor there the next Sunday is thinking, what do I do? How are we going to respond to this when people come to church today? And in the end, he decided on something really quite different, quite creative. He got a load of dark paper and kind of blacked out the church, turned on one light, and he got a load of mud and clay, the very same materials that people had been killed by in this landslide. And he piled it all up, and when people gathered for church that Sunday, he stood at the front and said, there's nothing to say today. We're not going to sing, we're not going to teach, we're not going to do any of the things we usually do. But if you would like to, before you leave today, you can grab some of this mud and this clay and you can create something on these blacked out walls. He thought that maybe nobody would even do it, that everyone would just kind of look confused and then walk away. But actually, it turned into this amazing, therapeutic, creative, subversive expression of worship in the midst of tragedy and pain. I think what that was a prophetic act of what the Bible calls lament, which is a really forgotten and neglected aspect of our worship, our spirituality, our relationship with God. Last week in this little series, I wanted to give an initial message of hope, an initial kind of positivity in the midst of this crisis that we're all in, that hits us all differently, to raise spirits. But this week I want to kind of hit the reality of the times when hope is hard to hold. You know, the thing is that sometimes there's relentless positivity, generally in the world and specifically in the church, actually. And that relentless positivity doesn't actually always help. What about the times when you just feel numb? I don't know if you've had that in the last few days and weeks. I've heard and read some helpful, interesting stuff recently about how actually we're all grieving. What we're really feeling, all of us, one way or another right now, is grief. And grief has a process. It has these stages. This is well known in psychological circles. This kind of process of denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. And actually, we often think of that like a real linear thing, like which stage am I in now? But it's not like that. One of my favorite food is waffles. But this is not like waffles, you know, one compartment and then the next and then the next. It's really good unless you spread peanut butter on it and then it just doesn't work. This isn't waffles, this grieving process. It's more like spaghetti. The anger and the bargaining and the depression feelings, they're all over the place. I've felt some of that myself in the last couple of weeks, actually. Sometimes where I'm just seething with anger and I don't really know why. Other times where I sit at my desk and I just can't get moving. I just can't get started. I've had this video on my to-do list all this week. It's taken me till Thursday to get around to actually making it. And the thing is about all of that I wanted to tell you guys is that grief is okay. You know, those moments where you feel demotivated or angry or frustrated or just low, it's okay, actually. And it is absolutely a part of our faith, a part of a genuine walk following Jesus. It's lament. And actually, it's not just okay, it's really, really biblical. You know, a third of the Psalms, which are the ancient hymn book, the first kind of song book that the original church had, a third of it is what you call Psalms of disorientation, Psalms of lament. You know, some of the Psalms are really joyful and thankful, and that's all in there too, in our response in this crisis. I'm sure that's important. I'm sure you've heard some of that from other places. But there's also all these times in Scripture where people in a real relationship with God throw up their hands and essentially say, God, what is going on? Where are you? What is happening? How long is this going to last? And that's okay. A friend of mine wrote a blog about the Psalms of disorientation, and I just want to read you a little bit of it. He says, we go through sometimes extended seasons of feeling totally disorientated in our relationship with God and ourselves and the world around us. During times of disorientation, we get a better grip on what it means to walk by faith and not by sight. To believe in spite of not feeling or experiencing the powerful presence of God gives the word faith a bit more grit, doesn't it? Sometimes things have fallen apart and we're left in a thick fog full of questions and doubts. That's okay. Lament is part of worship. Lament is part of a real relationship. Lament happens within trust. And if you still don't believe me, then maybe let's look at Jesus in the Scriptures, in the Garden of Gethsemane, the night that he's about to be arrested. In Luke's Gospel, it talks about him being in such anguish that he is sweating drops of blood. Modern medicine would tell us, as you may have heard, that's an indication of just extreme stress and pain. He really feels it. He's taken his best friends. He wants his closest friends around him in this moment of need. He says to them, my soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. He's being real. He's being honest. He's letting himself feel it. And he takes all that to God the Father, saying, Daddy, Father, Abba, Father. That word means daddy. Everything is possible for you, he says. Take this cup from me. Yet not what I will, but what you will. He gets to that, Jesus, doesn't he? Not what I will, Father, but what you will. But he doesn't start there. He starts with, my soul's overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. He starts with, if this is possible, take this cup from me. Here's my heart's cry. Here's what I want. Here's what I'm longing for. And that's Jesus. The example for all of us of what a relationship with God the Father should look like. I think there's a temptation to just distract ourselves. To just fall down a Google hole, to just stream another box set on Netflix, to just escape into some kind of alternate fantasy world. At least that's my temptation. To just check out, to just switch off the feelings because they hurt too much sometimes. What I'm trying to learn to do, what I'd encourage you to do, is not to just switch off, not to just check out, but to go towards God with it all, not run away from him, not pretend it's all okay and have that relentless positivity that isn't actually real, but within trust, within worship, to actually say, God, this is how I feel. This is what hurts right now. This is my anger right now. This is my sadness, my pain, my depression right now. These are my unanswered questions and my deep longings right now. And let him meet you there. Feel it, and then give it to God. Be real with him about how you feel and what you want. And then get to, Lord, but not my will, but yours be done. Get to that point of hope and joy and worship and trust. But don't neglect lament within that. Even as we're thinking in this little series about trusting God, please know it is okay to grieve. It's okay to doubt. It's okay to lament. That is part of our worship. It's part of being in a real relationship with God. And that disorientation is linked intrinsically to the hope that we also desperately need right now. It's when we really start to see what it means to walk by faith and not just by sight.